Kia ora, hello, vanakkam. You're watching Sarah in Between, and here we talk about what it means to live in the in-between, where our cultural values and our faith intersect and make us who we are. My name is Sarah. I am a second generation Kiwi-Indian living here in the beautiful Aotearoa, New Zealand, and I am really looking forward to sharing the struggles as well as the beauty of holding both faith and culture, and I'm hoping that this journey will encourage you too. I believe that this is what God has shown me throughout my journey, is that God works through our culture and not outside of it, and that faith can empower women with their cultural story. And these days there are a lot of spaces created for South Asian women. You can see them on TV, you can see them writing books, you see them on YouTube even, but there aren't a lot of spaces created specifically for South Asian or Indian women of faith, and we navigate a really complex world. Growing up a lot, I really struggled with who I was, and I struggled with not feeling like I really belonged anywhere. I grew up spending time between both New Zealand and India, where I was actually born, but I found that I was too white for my Indian community, and I was too Indian for my white community, and I would get statements like, go back to your own country, or where are you really from? Where are you originally from? And all these things made me really confused as to who I was, and I felt like at various points in my life I had to choose between either being this person or being that person. But I realized that actually God made you exactly the way that you're meant to be, and He's given you exactly the upbringing, the environment, the experiences, the parents, the family, exactly what you need to live out your God-given identity. And I'm really excited to be creating this space where we can talk about some really hard topics and complexities as South Asian women of faith. Today's topic is going to be about what no one tells you as a third culture kid. First of all, no one tells you that you're a third culture kid. And no one moves to another country and tells their child that they're going to be a third culture kid, and these are the things that they're going to experience, and that this means X, Y, and Z. My whole life, I've heard phrases like, you're too white for India and too Indian everywhere else. And whenever I'd go to India, people would call me an NRI, but when I came back to New Zealand, I was an immigrant. And the where are you really from question really got to me. So let's kind of talk about what a third culture kid really is, or a TCK. The official definition of a third culture kid is a person who has spent a significant part of their developmental years outside of their parents' culture. And the TCK builds relationships to all of the cultures while not having full ownership of any. And although elements from each culture are assimilated into the life experience, the sense of belonging is in relationship to others of similar background. So I guess no one told me that. And no one told me how hard it would be to try and fit in with your family, to make them proud, to be an essential part of your family, but also have to go outside and go to school and go to work and live in an environment and interact with people who are completely different from what you've been taught. And so I ended up kind of living two lives. I was one person at home and I was one person at school. And the hardest part about growing up between cultures was this sense of belonging. And I remember my greatest wish in life growing up was that I could somehow combine India and New Zealand and the people that I loved there and the friends that I had here, and maybe one day I could create a world in which both of them coexist. And then we wouldn't have to travel, and I wouldn't have to be something for someone depending on the situation that I was in. And so I really second guessed where I belonged and what that meant for who I was and who I wanted to be. So here are some things that I wish someone had told me as a third culture kid, growing up outside of my parents' culture and in a Western environment. First of all, God created you to be the way that you are, and there is no mistake in the places you were brought up in, or where you are in life, or the people that you have met. God brings everything together. He works all things together for the good of those who He loves, and He has made you on purpose, for a purpose. Secondly, what matters at the end of the day is that you are a child of God. Your identity, if you are a born-again Christian, is that you are God's first. You are God's child. That is your identity, and that should be the foremost thing that you get your belonging from. You already belong. He has already made you a part of God's family, and regardless of whether you feel like you don't belong in this group or that group, you belong to God, and you are His child. And the third thing is that God can use whatever experience you have, and He uses it for His glory. And you may have had struggles growing up between cultures. You may have chosen to go and be one culture and not the other. You may have faced persecution from family. You may have faced racial discrimination. You may have faced biases because of who you are and what you look like and what you sound like. But God can use all of those things for His glory, and none of it is by mistake. You might notice that sometimes I sound Indian, sometimes I sound Kiwi, sometimes I might even sound American, and at times I look overtly Indian, and other times people can't really even tell what culture I am from. And what I'd love to leave you with today is that if you believe that you have to choose one way of being over the other just so you can fit in, that's not true. And that's not the only way. And we're often made to believe that there is only one standard, and that might be the dominant culture of which we are living. But I don't think that we should waste the things that God has given us either. And a key part of that is our culture and who we are and who our previous generations have been and who we want to be as a result. So my encouragement to you today is, let's stop running from the things that make us us. And let's stop missing out on the person that God wants us to be and the things that He wants to do through us, through our unique identity gifted to us by Him. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I will see you all in my next video.